The crystal champagne flute slips from my husband's mother's manicured fingers. It falls to the marble floor with a sickening crack, shattering into glittering fragments at my feet. "Clean it up," she commands, not even glancing my way. My cheeks burn with humiliation as every pair of eyes in the lavish dining room turns to watch. I crouch down, knees trembling, reaching for the broken glass when a strong hand gently touches my shoulder. "Is there a problem here, Mrs. Bennett?" Marcus asks, his deep voice cutting through the uncomfortable silence. My bodyguard's question hangs in the air like a challenge, and for the first time in 3 years of marriage, I feel something dangerous and wonderful unfurl in my chest. Hope. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Hours earlier, morning light streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse apartment, casting long shadows across imported Italian tiles. I stand in the center of our gleaming kitchen, surrounded by a flurry of activity. Private chefs bustle around me, preparing an elaborate Sunday brunch while I supervise every detail. My husband, Richard Bennett, heir to the Bennett Media empire, lounges in the adjacent living room, scrolling through his phone with practiced disinterest. "Emma," Richard calls without looking up. "Mother just texted. She's bringing Uncle Charles and Aunt Vivian. Make sure there's enough of that champagne they like." I nod automatically, though he isn't watching. "Of course," I reply, already mentally recalculating portions and seating arrangements. Richard's family gatherings aren't simply social events. They're carefully orchestrated performances where every detail reflects on the Bennett name, and by extension, on me. After 3 years of marriage, I've learned the unspoken rules. The Bennett family doesn't serve themselves. They are served. And as Richard's wife, that responsibility falls squarely on my shoulders. The first warning bell sounds when my phone buzzes with a text from Sophia, my sister-in-law, bringing the twins and James's parents too. Hope that's not an issue. Not asking, telling. I close my eyes briefly, steeling myself. 8 more guests with less than an hour's notice. I turn to Alberto, our head chef. "We need to adjust the menu," I begin, but Richard's voice interrupts me. "Emma, come here." I excuse myself and cross to where Richard sits, his 6'3" frame draped casually across our $12,000 sofa. He doesn't look up from his phone. "My shirt for brunch, the blue Armani or the white Brioni?" "The blue brings out your eyes," I answer automatically. He nods, still not meeting my gaze. "I need you to pick up my dry cleaning before everyone arrives." I glance at the clock, barely 45 minutes until guests arrive. "I'm not sure I can. I still need to finalize the menu with Alberto, and your mother." Richard finally looks up, his handsome face hardening almost imperceptibly. "Emma, my meeting with the Reynolds Group is tomorrow. I need that suit." I know better than to argue. "Of course. I'll go right now." As I grab my purse, my phone rings. It's Marcus, the personal security professional Richard hired after a particularly aggressive paparazzi incident last year. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm downstairs. Do you need transportation today?" I hesitate. Richard doesn't like me using Marcus for errands, insisting his services are strictly for security. But time is running short. "Yes, please. I need to pick up Richard's dry cleaning." When I reach the lobby, Marcus stands by the car, tall and composed in his immaculate black suit. At 40-something with salt and pepper hair and eyes that miss nothing, he carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who's seen real danger and remains unimpressed by wealth. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett," he says, opening the door. "Emma, please," I remind him, as I have countless times before. "Just Emma." He nods but doesn't smile. Marcus rarely smiles. The car pulls smoothly into Manhattan traffic. "You seem tense today," he observes, eyes meeting mine briefly in the rearview mirror. I'm surprised by his perception, or perhaps by the fact that he noticed at all. Just a last-minute change of plans. Richard's family is coming for brunch. Marcus says nothing, but something in his silence feels like understanding. We retrieve the dry cleaning with minutes to spare. As we head back to the penthouse, my phone explodes with messages. Sophia announcing they're running early. Alberto asking about wine pairings. Richard wondering where I am. Marcus glances at my phone as it buzzes repeatedly. "Everything all right?" "Fine," I say automatically. "Just busy." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He navigates through traffic with practiced efficiency. You know, he says carefully, part of my job is ensuring your well-being. I'm not sure how to respond to that. No one in Richard's world has ever been concerned with my well-being, only with what I can provide. We arrive back at the penthouse with barely 15 minutes until the first guests arrive. I rush inside, hanging Richard's suit in our bedroom before hurrying to the kitchen to check on final preparations. Richard emerges from the bathroom, freshly showered and half-dressed. Where have you been? He asks, though he knows exactly where I was. Getting your suit, I reply, moving to help him with his cufflinks, Tiffany Platinum, a wedding gift from his parents. He allows me to fasten them, examining himself in the mirror rather than looking at me. Mother's bringing the Harringtons. James closed that deal with Sony yesterday. The information comes with an unspoken command: impress them. The doorbell chimes precisely at noon. Richard's mother, Victoria Bennett, sweeps in first, a vision in Chanel with a string of perfect South Sea pearls adorning her neck. She air kisses my cheeks, her perfume expensive and suffocating. Emma, darling, she says, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The foyer looks dusty. You really must speak to your housekeeper. Before I can respond, the apartment fills with Bennett family members and their guests. I move through the crowd, taking coats, offering drinks, playing the perfect hostess while Richard holds court in the living room, regaling everyone with stories of his latest business triumph. The brunch begins smoothly enough. Alberto's team serves the first course, a delicate crab soufflé that took hours to perfect. I catch Victoria's slight frown as she takes her first bite. A touch too much dill, don't you think? She murmurs, loud enough for everyone to hear. Richard's Uncle Charles nods in solemn agreement. Not like that wonderful brunch at the Carlisle last month. I smile tightly, making a mental note to speak with Alberto later, though the soufflé is perfect and we both know it. As the main course is served, Richard's sister Sophia leans across the table. Emma, James's mother doesn't eat gluten. Surely Richard mentioned that? He hadn't. No one had. Of course, I lie smoothly. Alberto has prepared a special plate. I'll get it right away. In the kitchen, I frantically explain the situation to Alberto, who looks murderous but professional as he hastily prepares an alternative dish. When I return, the conversation has turned to the upcoming Bennett Foundation Gala, the charity event that Victoria chairs annually. Emma will be handling the seating arrangements this year, Victoria announces without consulting me. She has so much free time, after all. Richard nods approvingly. She'd be delighted to help, wouldn't you, darling? This is how it always happens, decisions about my time, my obligations, made without my input. I'm a resource to be allocated, not a person to be consulted. Of course, I say, the word's automatic now. I'd be happy to. Victoria smiles, satisfied. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send over the guest list. All 500 names. As dessert is served, a complicated chocolate architecture that Alberto spent hours constructing, Richard's phone buzzes. He checks it, frowning slightly. Business, he explains to the table, standing. Excuse me for a moment. He disappears into his study, leaving me to manage his family alone. Victoria immediately shifts to the empty seat beside me. Emma, dear, she begins, her voice honeyed with false concern. I've been meaning to ask, when might we expect news of a grandchild? Richard isn't getting any younger. The question stings in places Victoria can't possibly understand, or perhaps she can, which would be worse. After a year of specialists and disappointments, Richard and I had agreed to stop trying. Or rather, Richard had decided. We're focusing on Richard's career right now, I reply, the practiced response rolling off my tongue. Victoria pats my hand with cold fingers. Well, don't wait too long. The Bennett name needs an heir. As if on cue, Sophia's twin boys race through the dining room, nearly appending a priceless vase. I jump up to steady it while Sophia laughs indulgently. Boys will be boys, she trills, making no move to intervene. Victoria's gaze follows the children with obvious pride. Such spirited little Bennett men, she coos, the comparison to my childlessness hanging unspoken in the air. Richard returns, sliding back into his chair with a distracted air. Problem at the office, he explains. I might need to go in later. On a Sunday? I ask before I can stop myself. His expression hardens slightly. The Reynolds deal, Emma. I told you how important it is. The implied criticism is clear, my concerns are trivial compared to his work. The pattern is so familiar it almost doesn't hurt anymore. Almost. As coffee is served, Victoria rises gracefully. Emma, be a dear and show me those new drapes you mentioned in the guest room. I'm thinking of redoing the cottage in the Hamptons. I never mentioned any drapes, but I follow her dutifully. Once we're alone in the guest bedroom, she turns to me, dropping all pretense of warmth. Richard seems stressed, she says accusingly. You need to do better at creating a peaceful home environment. I blink, taken aback. He's working hard on the Reynolds deal. A wife's duty is to support her husband, she interrupts. Your job is to make sure everything else in his life runs smoothly so he can focus on what matters. What matters? The Bennett business. The Bennett name. The Bennett legacy. Never me. I understand, I say quietly. Victoria adjusts her pearls. Good. Now, about the gala seating. The Morgans cannot be near the Prestons after that unfortunate situation with their daughter. And the mayor needs to be at Richard's table, of course. She continues dictating requirements as we walk back to the dining room, where I find the staff clearing dessert plates. Richard is deep in conversation with James about quarterly projections, while Sophia scrolls through her phone, ignoring her children as they grow increasingly rowdy. I move to help clear a champagne glass that one of the twins has nearly knocked over, but Victoria stops me with a sharp look. Emma, darling, do sit down. Let the staff handle that. It's what we pay them for. But as I take my seat, Sophia's oldest boy bumps the table, causing Victoria's champagne flute to topple and fall to the floor, shattering on impact. The room goes silent. Victoria's eyes narrow as she looks directly at me. Clean it up, she commands. Not asking the staff. Not scolding her grandson. Ordering me, her daughter-in-law, the wife of Richard Bennett, to get on my knees and pick up broken glass. I freeze, feeling every eye in the room on me. Richard doesn't move. Doesn't speak. His silence is a command in itself, do as mother says. Slowly, I bend down, my cheeks burning with humiliation, and begin gathering the larger shards of crystal. My hands tremble slightly, and I nick my finger on a sharp edge. A drop of blood falls to the white marble floor. Careful, Emma, Victoria says coldly. That set was a wedding gift from the Vanderbilts. I continue collecting glass fragments, painfully aware of the tableau I must present, the Bennett daughter-in-law on her hands and knees while the family watches with detached interest, as if observing an animal at the zoo. That's when I feel it, a strong, steady hand on my shoulder. I look up to find Marcus standing beside me, his expression unreadable except for something fierce in his eyes. Is there a problem here, Mrs. Bennett? He asks, his deep voice carrying easily across the now silent room. Victoria's eyes widen slightly, whether from surprise at his intervention or at being challenged, I can't tell. This is family business, Richard says tightly. You can wait downstairs. But Marcus doesn't move. Instead, he kneels beside me and gently takes the glass shards from my bleeding hand, placing them on a napkin. You're injured, he says simply, ignoring Richard completely. Let me help you with that. As he helps me to my feet, I feel something shift inside me, a crack appearing in the careful facade I've maintained for 3 years. Marcus's simple act of kindness, of treating me like a human being worthy of dignity, illuminates everything I've been accepting as normal. Emma, Richard says, his voice carrying a warning. Tell Marcus we're fine here. I look at my husband, truly look at him, and see a stranger. A man who would watch his wife bleed rather than contradict. His mother. A man who values appearance over compassion. We're not fine, I say quietly, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. We haven't been fine for a long time. The room seems to hold its breath. Victoria's face hardens into a mask of displeasure. Richard stares at me as if I've grown a second head. Perhaps, Marcus says calmly, you should see to your hand, Mrs. Bennett. I'll drive you to get it looked at if needed. His offer is a lifeline, a reason to leave this suffocating room, this moment that feels balanced on a knife's edge. I nod, unable to speak past the lump forming in my throat. Don't be ridiculous, Victoria scoffs. It's a tiny cut. Emma, sit down and stop making a scene. But I'm already moving toward the door, Marcus a solid presence beside me. Emma. Richard's voice rises, incredulous. What are you doing? We have guests. I turn back one last time, taking in the tableau of privilege and cold expectation. I'm leaving, I say simply, the words falling from my lips like stones into still water. And in that moment, with my fingers still bleeding and my heart pounding in my chest, I realize I mean it. Not just leaving this brunch, this room. Leaving everything. The silence in the elevator feels heavier than the tension upstairs. My hand throbs, a small crimson stain blooming on the handkerchief Marcus wordlessly offered me. Neither of us speaks as we descend 38 floors, the numbers glowing and fading like my fading certainties. My wedding ring catches the light. A 2-carat diamond that feels suddenly like a shackle. Your hand needs attention, Marcus finally says as the doors open to the private garage. I nod, still unable to process what just happened upstairs. What I just did. Walking out on Richard. On his family. On Sunday brunch. The realization hits me in waves, each one stronger than the last. I can't go back up there, I whisper, more to myself than to him. Marcus studies me for a moment, his expression carefully neutral. You don't have to, he says simply. Not today. Not ever. Something in his words breaks through the fog of shock surrounding me. Not ever. The possibility hovers between us, dangerous and exhilarating. He opens the car door, and I slide inside, grateful for the sanctuary of tinted windows and leather seats. As we pull out of the garage, my phone begins to ring. Richard's name flashes on the screen. I stare at it, my thumb hovering over the answer button out of 3 years of conditioned response. Marcus glances at me in the rearview mirror but says nothing. The phone continues to ring, insistent and demanding, just like its owner. For the first time, I press decline. Almost immediately, texts begin flooding in. Richard, what the hell was that? Richard, my mother is furious. Richard, everyone is staring. Richard, get back here now. Then, as if sensing my resistance, Richard, Emma, baby, I'm worried about you. Just come home. Richard, we can talk about this. Whatever this is. I turn off my phone completely, dropping it into my purse like it's suddenly toxic. There's an urgent care center 10 minutes from here, Marcus says, eyes fixed on the road. Ahead. For your hand. It's just a small cut, I reply automatically. Some wounds are deeper than they appear. I'm not sure if he's still talking about my hand. The urgent care waiting room is mercifully empty for a Sunday afternoon. A nurse cleans and bandages my cut, which looks far less dramatic without the backdrop of Victoria Bennett's disapproving stare. As we wait for the paperwork, I find myself studying Marcus as he sits across from me, posture alert even in rest. Why did you do that? I ask finally. Intervene upstairs? He considers the question carefully before answering. It's my job. To protect you. From broken glass? From harm, he says simply. In any form. The distinction feels significant somehow. In the 3 years Marcus has worked for us, for Richard, he has been a silent shadow, professionally distant. Necessary window dressing for a man of Richard's status, like the penthouse address and the private jet subscription. Richard will probably fire you, I say, the realization hitting me suddenly. Marcus's expression doesn't change. Probably. I'm sorry. Don't be. There are other jobs. But there aren't other lives, I think suddenly. I've spent 3 years becoming Mrs. Richard Bennett, molding myself to fit the expectations of a family that sees me as an accessory, a service provider, a potential incubator for the next generation of entitled Bennetts. Who was I before? The question surfaces like a bubble from murky depths. Emma Winters. 26. Art history major with dreams of museum curation. The girl who sketched in hidden corners of Central Park and $8 pizza at midnight with college friends who've long since stopped calling. I need to go somewhere, I say suddenly. Not home. Not yet. Marcus nods, not asking for explanations. Where would you like to go? I consider the question. My parents live in Arizona now. Too far for an immediate escape. Most of my pre-Richard friends have drifted away, put off by my increasingly limited availability and Richard's thinly veiled disdain for anyone outside his social circle. Then I remember. Cassie, I say, the name feeling rusty on my tongue. Cassie Lynn. She has a place in Brooklyn. Cassie was my roommate in college, fiercely loyal and brutally honest. She never liked Richard, saw through his charm to the control beneath. I'd gradually stopped mentioning her name after too many of Richard's dismissive comments. Our last coffee date was over a year ago, strained by all the things I couldn't say. Do you have her address? Marcus asks. I nod, pulling out my phone and turning it back on. Immediately, it explodes with notifications. 15 missed calls from Richard. 7 from Victoria. 3 from Sophia. Dozens of texts, each more demanding than the last. I ignore them all, scrolling to find Cassie's contact. I hesitate before pressing call, suddenly unsure. Emma? Is that really you? Something inside me crumbles at the warmth in her tone. Cassie, I manage, my voice cracking slightly. I need help. 30 minutes later, we're crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan receding behind us like a glittering mirage. My phone has been silenced, though I can see it lighting up periodically with Richard's calls. Each time, I let it go to voicemail. Cassie lives in a converted warehouse in Dumbo, all exposed brick and massive windows overlooking the East River. When she opens the door, her expression shifts from concern to shock as she takes in my bandaged hand and tear-stained face. Emma, what happened? She asks, pulling me into a fierce hug that smells of paint and jasmine tea. Over my shoulder, she notices Marcus standing a respectful distance behind me. And who's this? This is Marcus. He's. I pause, unsure how to explain. He helped me. Marcus nods politely. I should go, he says. Mr. Bennett will be looking for the car. The thought of him leaving sends a spike of panic through me. But Richard will fire you. Probably, he agrees again, seemingly unconcerned. I'll give you my personal number. If you need anything at all, call me. He hands me a plain business card with just a phone number, no name. As he turns to leave, I find myself calling after him. Thank you, I say, the words wholly inadequate for what he did. He pauses, something unreadable flickering across his face. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Bennett. He hesitates, then adds, Emma. As his footsteps recede down the hallway, Cassie gently pulls me inside her loft. Okay, she says, sitting me down on her overstuffed couch. Start at the beginning. So I do. The words pour out of me like water from a broken dam, the isolation, the subtle control, the way Richard and his family treated me like a possession rather than a person. The constant criticism veiled as concern. The slow erosion of my independence, so gradual I barely noticed until I had nothing left that was truly mine. Cassie listens without interrupting, her artist's hands wrapped around a mug of tea, her eyes growing increasingly stormy. When I finally finish with the scene at brunch, she sets down her mug with deliberate care. Emma, she says slowly. That's abuse. I flinch at the word. It's not like he hits me, abuse isn't just physical, she cuts in. What you're describing, the isolation, the control, the humiliation, that's emotional abuse. And it's just as damaging. I want to argue, to defend Richard and my choices, but the words die in my throat. Because deep down, in places I've refused to examine, I know she's right. I don't know what to do, I admit, my voice small. Cassie reaches for my hand, careful of the bandage. You stay here as long as you need to. First step. Richard will come looking for me. Let him. She says with a fierceness that reminds me why I loved her. This is my home. My rules. And rule number 1 is no emotionally abusive husbands allowed. Despite everything, I feel my lips twitch toward a smile. He won't like that. Good, Cassie says firmly. I don't like him either. That night, I sleep in Cassie's guest room, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the comforting smell of linseed oil. My phone remains off, a small act of rebellion that feels enormous. For the first time in years, I fall asleep without checking if Richard needs anything, without setting an alarm to be up before him, without the weight of tomorrow's expectations crushing my chest. I dream of falling glass and reaching hands. Morning brings reality crashing back. When I finally turn on my phone, there are 37 missed calls and dozens of increasingly frantic, then angry texts from Richard. The last one, sent at 3:17 a.m., simply says, "This is unacceptable. Come home now." Cassie finds me staring at the screen, paralyzed by the familiar pull of guilt and obligation. You don't owe him an explanation, she says, setting a cup of coffee beside me. Not yet. Not until you're ready. What if I'm never ready? She sits beside me, her expression serious. Then that's your choice too. But Emma, whatever you decide, it needs to be your decision. Not his. Not his family's. Yours. My decision. The concept feels foreign after years of deferring to Richard's preferences, Richard's schedule, Richard's needs. I need time to think, I say finally. Cassie nods. Take all the time you need. I'm working from home this week anyway. I look around her loft, at the easels and paint-splattered floors, the walls covered in her vibrant abstract paintings. You're doing well, I observe. Last time we talked, you were just starting to sell your work. A smile lights up her face. I have a gallery show next month. My first solo exhibition. Shame washes over me. I didn't know. I should have known that. Hey, she says gently. You're here now. That's what matters. Later that morning, while Cassie works in her studio space, I sit by the massive windows overlooking the river, watching ferries crisscross the water. The city looks different from this side, the Manhattan skyline a beautiful facade concealing all the complex, messy realities within. Like my marriage, I think suddenly. From the outside, being Mrs. Richard Bennett looked perfect, the wealthy husband, the penthouse apartment, the glamorous social life. No one saw the woman who gradually disappeared inside that life, piece by piece, until almost nothing of Emma Winters remained. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart races with anxiety. Richard using a different phone? But the message puts me at ease, just checking that you're safe. Marcus, I hesitate, then reply, I'm safe. Thank you. 3 simple dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, good. I've been let go, as expected. If you need anything, I'm available. The knowledge that he lost his job because of me sits heavy in my stomach. I type quickly, I'm sorry about your job. His response comes immediately, I'm not. Before I can puzzle over his reply, my phone rings with a familiar number. Not Richard this time, but Victoria Bennett. My mother-in-law has never called me directly before. My thumb hovers over the screen, a war between conditioning and self-preservation raging inside me. Finally, curiosity wins out. Hello? Emma, Victoria's voice is glacial. This childish behavior stops now. Richard is beside himself. You're embarrassing the family. No greeting. No, are you okay? Just demands and guilt. Something hardens inside me. I'm taking some time for myself, I say, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Victoria makes a sound of impatient dismissal. Whatever crisis you're having needs to wait. The Reynolds meeting is tomorrow, and Richard needs to focus. You're being selfish. The accusation hits its mark, as it's meant to. In the Bennett family lexicon, few sins rank higher than selfishness, unless it's the Bennetts themselves. Being selfish, in which case it's simply their due. I'm sorry Richard is distracted, I say carefully. But I need this time. Need? Victoria's voice drips with disdain. What you need is to remember your place in this family. Richard gave you everything, Emma. Everything. And this is how you repay him? By running off like some hysterical teenager? Each word is precisely targeted, designed to wound and control. A week ago, yesterday even, they would have sent me rushing back, desperate to make amends. Today, they illuminate the trap I've been living in. I have to go, I say quietly. Emma Winters Bennett, don't you dare hang up on me. I end the call, my hand trembling but my resolve strangely strengthened. Victoria has shown me exactly what I'll be returning to if I go back, a lifetime of being managed, diminished, and controlled. A lifetime of never being enough. The phone immediately rings again. This time, I turn it off completely. Cassie emerges from her studio, paintbrush tucked behind her ear. Everything okay? I heard you talking. Victoria called, I say, still staring at my darkened phone. She's not happy. Cassie snorts. I bet not. What did Queen Victoria want? For me to remember my place. And what place is that exactly? The question hangs in the air between us. What is my place in the Bennett family? Decorative wife? Unpaid event coordinator? Future mother of the Bennett heir? I don't know who I am anymore, I admit, the realization both terrifying and strangely liberating. Cassie sits across from me, her expression softening. Then maybe it's time to find out. That afternoon, we venture out to a small cafe a few blocks from Cassie's loft. It's nothing like the carefully curated establishments Richard prefers. No tasting menus or sommelier recommendations, just good coffee and pastries served on mismatched plates. I feel conspicuous at first, certain everyone can see "runaway wife" stamped on my forehead, but gradually the anonymity of Brooklyn wraps around me like a comforting blanket. No one here knows I'm Mrs. Richard Bennett. No one cares. You should call a lawyer, Cassie says as we linger over second cups of coffee. Just to understand your options. I wrap my hands around my mug, the bandage on my finger a stark reminder of yesterday's catalyst. I don't even know if I want a divorce. I admit. Everything's happening so fast. It doesn't have to be about divorce right now, she says gently. But you should know where you stand legally. Richard has all the power right now, the money, the connections, the resources. You need to level the playing field. She's right. I realize. In my rush to escape, I hadn't thought about practicalities. My credit cards are all connected to accounts Richard controls. I don't even have my toothbrush, I say with a slightly hysterical laugh. Cassie smiles. That, at least, we can fix. There's a drugstore on the corner. As we walk back to her loft, shopping bags filled with basic necessities in hand, I feel My phone vibrate in my pocket. I've turned it back on, bracing for more messages from Richard or his family, but this notification is different. An email alert from our joint bank account. I stop in the middle of the sidewalk, opening the app with shaking fingers. What is it? Cassie asks, concern etching her features. I stare at the screen in disbelief. Richard's frozen our accounts. All of them? I nod numbly, scrolling through notification after notification. Credit cards suspended. Investment account access revoked. Even my personal checking account, the one where my small inheritance from my grandmother was deposited, shows a zero balance. He's cut me off completely, I whisper. Cassie's expression hardens. Okay, now we definitely need to call a lawyer. Back at the loft, Cassie makes calls while I sit in stunned silence. The financial reality of my situation is only now becoming clear. I have no money, no access to funds, not even a change of clothes beyond what we just purchased. Richard has ensured that I can't survive without him, or rather, that returning to him is my only viable option. Got one, Cassie announces finally. Diane Ortega. She specializes in high net worth divorces and domestic abuse cases. She can see you tomorrow morning. I can't afford a lawyer, I point out, gesturing to my phone with its notifications of frozen accounts. First consultation is free, Cassie says. And don't worry about the rest yet. One step at a time. That night, as I lay in Cassie's guest bed staring at the ceiling, my phone lights up with a text from Marcus's number. Mr. Bennett has hired a private investigator to find you. Thought you should know. My heart races. How do you know this? I type back. I have contacts in the security world. Be careful about using credit cards or phones in your name. Too late for the credit cards, I reply. Richard's frozen everything. There's a long pause before his response. Are you safe? Do you need anything? The question brings unexpected tears to my eyes. When was the last time someone asked what I needed rather than telling me what I should do? I'm safe, I assure him. Just figuring out next steps. Good, he replies. Then, after a moment, you're stronger than you think, Emma. I stare at those words long after the screen has darkened. Stronger than you think. Am I? The Emma who walked away from that brunch yesterday feels like a stranger, someone braver and more decisive than the woman who has spent 3 years carefully avoiding Richard's displeasure. Yet here I am, still breathing, still moving forward despite Richard's attempts to force my return. Maybe Marcus is right. Maybe there is strength in me that I've forgotten how to recognize. I fall asleep with his words echoing in my mind. Stronger than you think. Morning brings a new message, this one from Richard himself. This has gone on long enough. Come home and we'll forget this happened. Otherwise, I can't guarantee things will go well for you. The threat is thinly veiled but unmistakable. Richard Bennett is not a man accustomed to being defied, especially not by his wife. And he has resources I can't begin to match, legal, financial, social. But for the first time since I walked out of our apartment, I feel something other than fear or confusion. I feel resolve. I shower and dress in the clothes Cassie and I bought yesterday, simple jeans and a sweater, nothing like the designer wardrobe Richard expected me to wear. As I brush my hair, I study my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Without the careful makeup, expensive clothes, and perfect blowout that were part of my daily uniform as Mrs. Bennett, I look younger. More like the Emma Winters who existed before Richard. She's still in there somewhere, I realize. Buried but not erased. When I emerge, Cassie is waiting with coffee and a determined expression. Ready to meet the lawyer? I take a deep breath, thinking of Richard's threat, of Victoria's cold dismissal, of the life I've been living as an accessory rather than a person. I think of Marcus kneeling beside me to pick up broken glass, treating me with a dignity the Bennetts never did. Yes, I say, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I'm ready. Diane Ortega's law office occupies the top floor of a converted factory building in downtown Brooklyn. The waiting area features exposed brick walls and large windows that flood the space with natural light, a stark contrast to the sterile, impersonal luxury of the legal firms Richard frequents. I sit nervously on a leather couch, flipping through a magazine without absorbing a single word. Cassie squeezes my hand reassuringly. Ms. Winters? A woman appears in the doorway, petite, impeccably dressed, with a no-nonsense demeanor that radiates competence. I'm Diane Ortega. Please come in. I hesitate at the use of my maiden name, a name I haven't heard in 3 years. It's Bennett, actually. Emma Bennett. Diane's expression remains neutral. Is that the name you want to use going forward? The question catches me off guard. I hadn't considered that I have a choice. For now, I say finally. Until I figure things out. She nods, leading us into a comfortable office with a view of the Brooklyn Bridge. As we sit, she pulls out a yellow legal pad and clicks her pen. Before we begin, I need to be clear about something, she says, her dark eyes sharp and assessing. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to ensure you understand your options and to protect your interests, whatever you decide. Relief washes over me. Even Cassie, for all her good intentions, has strong opinions about my marriage. The idea of someone simply helping me navigate this mess without an agenda feels like a gift. Now, Diane continues, tell me everything. I do. The courtship that swept me off my feet, Richard Bennett, 32 to my 23, successful and charismatic, pursuing me with an intensity that felt flattering. The whirlwind romance, the lavish proposal at Le Bernardin, the society wedding featured in Vogue. Then the gradual shift after the honeymoon. The subtle criticisms of my friends until I stopped seeing them. The control over our finances, even the money I'd brought into the marriage. The way Richard and his family treated me like an employee rather than a partner. The increasing isolation. And finally, the breaking point, the broken champagne flute, Victoria's command, the bodyguard's intervention. Diane listens without interruption, taking occasional notes. When I finish, she sets down her pen. Mrs. Bennett, she says carefully, what you're describing follows a classic pattern of emotional abuse and financial control. Whether you choose to work on your marriage or end it, you need to protect yourself. Richard has frozen all our accounts, I tell her. I have nothing. She doesn't look surprised. It's a common tactic. Create financial dependence, then use it as leverage to force a return. She taps her pen against the legal pad. But he's made a mistake. By cutting you off completely, he's handed us grounds for emergency support. What does that mean? Cassie asks. It means, Diane explains, that we can petition the court for immediate temporary support and access to marital funds while any divorce proceedings are pending. Mr. Bennett can't legally leave his wife destitute, regardless of whose name is on the accounts. Hope flickers inside me. How long would that take? With evidence of financial abuse, we could have an emergency hearing within days. She slides a form across the desk. This authorizes me to begin representing you. The initial consultation is free, as your friend mentioned, and we can discuss payment options once we've secured you access to funds. I stare at the form, pen poised above the signature line. This single signature would be a step toward something I hadn't even considered 2 days ago, a life apart from Richard. I don't know if I want a divorce, I admit. Everything's happening so fast. Diane nods. Signing this doesn't commit you to divorce. It just gives you legal protection while you decide. Think of it as creating breathing room. Breathing room. Space to think clearly, without Richard's influence or his family's expectations pressing down on me. I sign the form. Good, Diane says, taking it back. Now, do you have somewhere safe to stay? Somewhere your husband wouldn't immediately look? She's staying with me, Cassie says firmly. Diane shakes her head slightly. Mr. Bennett knows about your friendship. It will be the first place he or his investigators check. The thought sends a chill through me. He's hired someone to find me? Most likely, Diane confirms. Men like Richard Bennett don't like losing control. You need to stay somewhere. He wouldn't think to look. My mind races through possibilities. My parents are too obvious. Other college friends would be predictable. Then I remember the card in my pocket, the number I've already texted. I might know someone, I say slowly. Someone Richard wouldn't suspect. After the meeting, Cassie and I walked to a nearby cafe, taking a corner table away from windows. The reality of my situation is setting in. I'm effectively in hiding from my own husband. You can't seriously be considering calling the bodyguard, Cassie says when I explain my idea. His name is Marcus, I correct her. And why not? Richard fired him. He has no reason to be loyal to the Bennetts anymore. Because you barely know him, she counters. He could still be working for Richard for all you know. I shake my head. You didn't see his face when he helped me. How he stood up to Richard. That wasn't an act. Cassie looks unconvinced, but pulls out her phone. Fine, but we're meeting somewhere public first. And I'm coming with you. Agree, then step outside to make the call, grateful that Richard never bothered to learn the names of the help. He wouldn't think to track Marcus's number. Marcus answers on the second ring. Emma? Are you alright? The concern in his voice strengthens my resolve. I need a favor, a big one. Can we meet? 2 hours later, we sit in a quiet diner in Park Slope. Marcus arrived before us, choosing a booth with a clear view of all entrances and exits, a habit from his security work, I realize. Thank you for coming, I say as Cassie eyes him suspiciously. Of course. He looks different in casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual suit. More approachable, but no less imposing. I explain our situation. Diane's advice about staying somewhere unexpected, Richard's likely efforts to find me, my limited options. You need a safe house, he summarizes when I finish. Temporarily, I clarify. Just until the emergency hearing. A few days at most. Marcus considers this, his expression thoughtful. I have a place upstate. My sister's house, she's in Europe for 6 months on a research grant. It's remote, about 2 hours north of the city. No one knows I have access to it. You want Emma to go to some isolated cabin with a man she barely knows? Cassie interjects, protective instincts flaring. It's not isolated, Marcus corrects calmly. It's in a small town. Neighbors nearby. And I wouldn't stay there, I'd just get you settled and leave you the keys. You'd have complete privacy. I look at Cassie, whose skepticism is written plainly on her face, then back to Marcus. Why would you help me like this? His expression softens slightly. Because I've worked for men like Richard Bennett before. I've seen what happens to the women in their lives. He pauses. And because what I saw at that brunch wasn't right. Something in his straightforward assessment rings true. After years of navigating Richard's complex motivations and his family's veiled intentions, Marcus's simple honesty feels like solid ground beneath my feet. Okay, I decide. When can we go? Cassie looks alarmed. Emma, you can't be serious. I need somewhere Richard won't think to look, I remind her. This is perfect. I'll come visit you, she insists. Every day if necessary. That would defeat the purpose, Marcus points out gently. If someone's watching you, they'd follow you right to Emma. Cassie deflates slightly, recognizing the logic. I hate this. I do too, I admit. But it's just for a few days. We make plans quickly. I'll leave tonight, taking only what we purchased yesterday, nothing that could be tracked or traced. Back to Richard. Marcus will drive me upstate, then return to the city to avoid suspicion. Back at Cassie's loft, I pack my meager belongings while she hovers anxiously. I still think this is crazy, she says, watching me fold a sweater. You've known this guy for what, a day? 3 years, technically, I correct her. He's been Richard's bodyguard since shortly after we got married. And in those 3 years, how many actual conversations did you have with him? I pause, considering. The truth is, very few. Richard preferred I not engage with the staff beyond giving necessary instructions. Marcus had been a silent presence in the background of my life, opening doors, standing guard, always watchful but rarely speaking. Yet in the past 24 hours, he's shown more genuine concern for my well-being than Richard has in years. I trust him, I say finally. I can't explain why exactly. I just do. Cassie sighs, accepting defeat. Promise you'll text me when you get there. And every few hours after that. I promise, I say, embracing her tightly. Thank you, for everything. She pulls back, fixing me with a serious look. You're doing the right thing, Emma. Standing up for yourself. Don't forget that when things get hard. As twilight falls, Marcus's car pulls up outside Cassie's building. I hug her one last time, then slip downstairs with my small bag. The city lights are just beginning to twinkle as we drive away from Brooklyn, heading north along the Hudson River. Thank you for doing this, I say after we've been driving in comfortable silence for some time. Marcus glances at me briefly before returning his eyes to the road. No need to thank me. There is, though. You lost your job because of me. And now you're going above and beyond to help someone who's basically a stranger. His hands tighten. Slightly on the steering wheel. You're not a stranger, Emma. The simple statement hangs between us, unexpectedly intimate. What do you mean? I ask softly. He's quiet for a moment, seemingly choosing his words carefully. I've been in your home for 3 years. I've seen how he treats you. How they all treat you. I swallow hard, something between shame and relief washing over me. And what did you see? A woman disappearing a little more each day. His voice is quiet but sure. Someone who deserved better. Tears prick at my eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. I turn to look out the window, watching the city give way to suburbs, then to the darker silhouettes of trees against the night sky. I didn't realize anyone noticed, I say finally. I notice things. It's my job. A pause. Was my job. Do you have other clients? Other work lined up? He shrugs slightly. I'll be fine. I have savings, contacts in the industry. Still, I persist, I feel responsible. Marcus shakes his head. Working for Richard Bennett was always temporary for me. I was planning to leave anyway. This surprises me. Why? He's quiet for so long I think he might not answer. Finally, he says, there are lines in my profession. Things I won't do, people I won't work for. Richard was getting close to crossing those lines. I want to ask what lines, what things? But something in his tone suggests the topic is closed. Instead, I ask, what did you do before you worked for Richard? Military, he answers. Special forces. Then private security for various clients. And you chose to work for businessmen. Like Richard after that? Seems like a step down from anything special forces. A smile touches his lips briefly. It paid well. Flexible hours. No one shooting at me. Lower stakes, I suggest. His expression turns serious again. Not always. The implication settles heavily between us. Not always lower stakes. Because sometimes the danger isn't from outside threats, but from within the household itself. We drive in silence for a while, the rhythmic sweep of headlights on the dark highway almost hypnotic. I find myself growing drowsy, the emotional exhaustion of the past 2 days catching up with me. You can sleep, Marcus says, noticing my heavy eyelids. It's still an hour to the house. I want to protest that I'm fine, that I shouldn't sleep. While he drives, but the gentle rumble of the car and the strange sense of safety I feel in his presence lull me under. I wake to the gentle pressure of a hand on my shoulder. Emma, Marcus says softly. We're here. I blink, disoriented, as my eyes adjust to the dim interior light. Outside the car windows, I can make out the shadowy shape of a house, trees swaying gently in the night breeze. What time is it? I ask, my voice thick with sleep. Just after midnight, he replies, already moving to retrieve my bag from the back seat. I follow him up a gravel path to a charming 2-story cottage with a wide front porch. It's too dark to make out details, but the silhouette suggests something cozy and welcoming, nothing like the stark modern lines of the Bennett penthouse. Inside, Marcus moves confidently through the dark, switching on lamps to reveal a comfortable living room with well-worn furniture and bookshelves lining one wall. It feels lived in, personal in a way my own home never did, despite, or perhaps because of, the expensive interior designer Richard hired. Kitchen's through there, Marcus says, gesturing. 2 bedrooms upstairs. Bathroom has a decent shower, but the water takes a while to heat up. He sets my bag down and pulls out a set of keys. These are yours. Front door, back door, shed out. Back if you need it. There's firewood stacked on the porch. He walks me through a few more practical details, the quirky thermostat, the location of extra blankets, the Wi-Fi password, then heads to the kitchen. I hear the refrigerator open and close, cabinet doors thumping gently. My sister left the place stocked, he calls. Should be enough for a few days, but there's a small grocery in town if you need anything else. I follow him into the kitchen, watching as he efficiently writes down a few phone numbers on a notepad, his, Cassie's, Diane's, and one labeled neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen lives next door, he explains. Elderly widow, but sharp as they come. She keeps an eye on the place for my sister. Knows I might be stopping by occasionally. If you need anything and can't reach me, call her. His thoroughness touches me. You've thought of everything. Not everything, he admits. But enough to keep you safe for now. He moves toward the door, clearly preparing to leave. A sudden panic grips me at the thought of being alone in this unfamiliar place. You're leaving? Now? Marcus pauses. Hand on the doorknob. It's better if I'm not here. Less complicated. It's after midnight, I protest. You've been driving for hours. I've driven longer on less sleep, he says with a slight shrug. Please, I say, surprising myself with. The intensity in my voice. Just stay until morning. You can take the couch. Or I can. I'm a grown woman, perfectly capable of spending a night alone in a secure house. Yet the thought of Marcus leaving, of being truly alone with the enormity of what I've done and what lies ahead, is suddenly terrifying. Thank you, I whisper. He nods, setting his keys back down on the counter. You should get some rest. Take the master bedroom upstairs. I'll be fine down here. Too tired to argue, I grab my bag and head upstairs. The master bedroom is simply furnished but comfortable. With a queen-sized bed covered in a handmade quilt and large windows that I imagine have a beautiful view in daylight. I change quickly into the pajamas Cassie helped me buy, then send her a quick text letting her know I've arrived safely. Despite my exhaustion, sleep proves elusive. I lie awake, listening to the unfamiliar creaks and sighs of the old house, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Is this really happening? Am I really hiding from my husband in a stranger's house 2 hours from the city? What will happen at the hearing? What if Richard finds me before then? After an hour of tossing and turning, I give up. Wrapping myself in a blanket from the foot of the bed, I pad downstairs, thinking a glass of water might help. I find Marcus still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of something steaming in front of him, scrolling through his phone. He looks up as I enter. Everything okay? Can't sleep, I admit, moving to fill a glass with water from the tap. He nods as if this is perfectly understandable. Tea, he offers, gesturing to a kettle on the stove. Please. He rises to prepare it, moving with the same quiet efficiency I've always observed in him. As he steeps the tea, I notice a small scar on his forearm, visible now that he's rolled up his sleeves, a thin, jagged line that disappears beneath the fabric. Afghanistan? I guess, nodding toward it. He glances down, seeming mildly surprised. That I noticed. Bosnia, actually. You don't talk about your military service much. Neither do most who've served, he replies, setting a mug of tea in front of me. Sugar? I shake my head. How did you end up working for Richard? Marcus sits back down across from me. Agency placement. They needed someone with my qualifications, I needed a job with regular hours. Why regular hours? I ask, curious about this glimpse into his life outside the Bennett orbit. Something shifts in his expression, a subtle softening around the eyes. My mother was sick. Cancer. I needed to be able to visit her regularly, take her to treatments. The Bennett position offered predictability. This simple revelation stuns me. In 3 years, I never knew Marcus had a mother battling cancer, never thought to ask about his life or needs. Richard certainly never mentioned it. I'm sorry. I say, genuinely meaning it. Is she? She passed last year, he says quietly. Peacefully, at home. That's why you stayed, I realize. Even when Richard became difficult. You needed the stability. He meets my eyes. Partly. But after she passed, I was already looking for something else. Richard's behavior was becoming problematic. Problematic how? I ask, though I think I know the answer. Marcus considers his words carefully. Controlling. Paranoid. He started asking me to do surveillance that went beyond normal security concerns. Track people's movements, report conversations. My conversations? I ask, a chill running through me. He nods once, confirming my suspicion. I refused. Told him it wasn't part of my job description. That's when things got tense between us. The revelation shouldn't shock me, but it does. The idea that Richard wanted me monitored, my conversations reported back to him, it speaks to a level of control and distrust I hadn't fully acknowledged. Did he hire someone else to do it? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Not that I know of, Marcus replies. But I wouldn't put it past him. We sit in silence for a moment, the implications settling heavily between us. Finally, I ask the question that's been nagging at me since the brunch. Why did you help me? Really? Marcus looks down at his mug, then back up at me, his gaze direct and unwavering. Because everyone deserves dignity, Emma. Everyone deserves to be treated with basic respect. What I saw at that brunch crossed a line. But you risked your job, your reputation in the industry. Some things matter more than a paycheck. He says it simply, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. In that moment, I realize how warped my perspective has become after years with Richard. The idea that principles might outweigh profit, that some things simply aren't for sale. These concepts had gradually faded from my worldview, replaced by Richard's ruthless pragmatism and his family's entitlement. Thank you, I say, the words utterly inadequate for what I'm trying to express. Not just for the help, but for seeing me. When I'd stopped seeing myself. Marcus holds my gaze for a long moment, something unspoken passing between us. Then he nods once, accepting my gratitude without diminishing it. Try to get some sleep, he says gently. Tomorrow's another day. I finish my tea and head back upstairs, his words echoing in my mind. Tomorrow's another day. A day Richard doesn't control. A day where I make my own choices. A day where I can begin to rediscover the woman I was before I became Mrs. Richard Bennett. For the first time in years, I find myself looking forward to tomorrow. Morning arrives in dappled sunlight filtering through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, I lie disoriented, my mind struggling to place the handmade quilt, the simple pine furniture, the soft blue walls. Then it all comes rushing back, the brunch, the broken glass, the escape. I'm in Marcus's sister's house, hiding from my husband. I sit up slowly, the events of the past 48 hours settling around me like a strange new reality. The digital clock on the nightstand reads 8:17 a.m. I wonder if Marcus is still downstairs or if he left while I was sleeping. The answer comes in the form of coffee aroma drifting up the stairs. I pull on the sweater I bought with Cassie and make my way downstairs, following the scent to the kitchen where Marcus stands at the stove, his back to me. Good morning, I say softly, not wanting to startle him. He turns, spatula in hand. Morning. Hope I didn't wake you. The coffee did, I admit, eyeing the full pot on the counter with undisguised longing. Help yourself, he says, nodding toward a cabinet. Mugs are up there. I pour myself a cup, watching as he flips what appears to be an omelet with practiced ease. You cook. It's not a question, but he answers anyway. Basic survival skill. Nothing fancy. Richard can't even make toast, I say before I can stop myself. He says that's what restaurants and private chefs are for. Marcus's expression remains neutral, but something flickers in his eyes, not quite judgment, but understanding. Plates in that cabinet, is all he says. We eat breakfast at the small kitchen table, sunlight streaming through windows that reveal a view I couldn't appreciate in last night's darkness. The house sits on a generous lot backing up to woods, a small garden visible to one side, wildflowers nodding in the morning breeze. It's beautiful here, I say, breaking the comfortable silence. Marcus follows my gaze. My sister's an environmental scientist. She chose this place for the ecosystems as much as the house itself. I don't even know her name, I realize aloud. Claire, he supplies. Dr. Claire Reeves. I blink at the different surname. You're not half-siblings, he explains. Same mother, different fathers. I nod, absorbing this small piece of his personal history. It's strange to realize how little I know about the man who's risked so much to help me, when he seems to understand so much about me. I should head back to the city soon, he says, checking his watch. Your lawyer will want updates, and I need to handle some things at my apartment. Anxiety flutters in my chest at the thought of being left alone, but I push it down. Of course. He must see something in my expression because he adds, Mrs. Chen next door knows I'm leaving you here. She'll check in. And I'll be back tomorrow with supplies and any updates from your lawyer. I nod, grateful for his thoughtfulness. I'll be fine, I say, trying to convince myself as much as him. Marcus rises, carrying our plates to the sink. Before I go, I should show you around the property, make sure you know where everything is. The tour is quick but thorough, the small garden with its late summer vegetables, the shed with tools and emergency supplies, the walking path that leads to a stream at the edge of the property. The nearest neighbor, Mrs. Chen, lives in a tidy bungalow just visible through the trees. The small town is about a mile down the road, walkable if necessary, Marcus explains, but not advisable until we know whether Richard's investigator has expanded the search this far upstate. Best to stay on the property for now, he advises. I'll bring whatever you need when I come back tomorrow. I nod, though the thought of being effectively confined, even in this lovely setting, stirs uncomfortable memories of the invisible constraints of my marriage, the places I couldn't go, the people I couldn't see, all dictated by Richard's preferences. As if reading my thoughts, Marcus adds, it's temporary, Emma. Just until the hearing. I know, I say, forcing a smile. I'll be fine. Really. He studies me for a moment, then pulls out his phone. Put your number in. I'll text periodically. To check in. If you don't respond within an hour, I'll assume something's wrong and come back immediately. The precaution seems extreme, but I don't argue, taking his phone and entering my number. Our fingers brush as I hand it back, a small contact that shouldn't feel significant but somehow does. Thank you, I say, meaning it for far more than just the borrowed house or the promise to return. For everything. Marcus nods once, his expression serious. Lock up after I leave. Don't answer the door unless it's me or Mrs. Chen. I've told her to identify herself clearly. With these final instructions, he gets into his car and drives away, leaving me standing on the porch of a stranger's house, watching until his taillights disappear around the bend. Alone for the first time in days, I feel the weight of my situation pressing down. I've left my husband, my home, my entire life. I'm hiding in a house in the woods while lawyers prepare for a hearing that might determine my financial survival. It's surreal, like I've stepped into someone else's life story. I walk back inside, locking the door as instructed, and take stock of my surroundings. The house feels different without Marcus's steady presence, bigger and emptier somehow. I wander from room to room, reacquainting myself with the layout, examining the personal touches that speak of Claire Reeves, bookshelves filled with scientific texts and nature guides, framed botanical prints on the walls, a collection of unusual rocks and fossils displayed on a side table. In the study, a photograph catches my eye, a younger Marcus in military uniform standing beside a smiling woman who must be Claire and an older woman with Marcus's eyes who can only be their mother. They look happy, connected, a real family. It strikes me that in 3 years of marriage, I've never seen a photograph of Richard looking at his mother or sister with such genuine warmth. My phone buzzes with a text from Cassie. How are you? Holding up? Any news? I type back, I'm okay. Marcus just left. Waiting to hear from Diane about the hearing. Her response is immediate. Still can't believe you're staying at Bodyguard man's sister's house. Straight out of a movie. I smile. Despite myself. Trust Cassie to find the cinematic angle in my personal crisis. Less exciting than it sounds. Mostly just hiding out until the hearing. Stay safe, she replies. Call if you need anything. I promise I will, then set my phone aside. The quiet of the house envelopes me, not oppressive like the silence of the penthouse when Richard was angry, but gentle, expectant, like the house itself is waiting to see what I'll do next. What will I do next? The question expands to fill the empty spaces around me. Not just today or tomorrow, but after the hearing, after the immediate crisis passes. Who am I without Richard? What do I want my life to look like? I've spent 3 years defining myself as Mrs. Richard Bennett, reshaping my preferences, my schedule, even my personality to fit the role. Without that framework, I feel untethered, adrift in possibilities both exhilarating and terrifying. Restless energy propels me outside to the garden. Late summer vegetables ripen on the vine, tomatoes, zucchini, peppers. I kneel on the soft earth, pulling weeds, the simple physical task grounding me in the present moment. The sun warms my back as I work, and gradually the churning anxiety begins to settle. One day at a time, I tell myself. That's all anyone can do. By afternoon, I've harvested enough vegetables for a simple dinner and cleaned most of the house, needing the activity to keep my thoughts from spiraling. I'm arranging the tomatoes in a bowl when a knock at the door sends my heart racing. Emma? It's Junshin from next door, calls a voice with a slight accent. Marcus asked me to check on you. I approach cautiously, peering through the peephole to see a petite elderly woman with silver hair cut in a stylish bob, holding what appears to be a casserole dish. Just a moment, I call, unlocking the door with slightly trembling hands. Mrs. Chen beams at me when I open the door, extending the dish. Brought you my famous 3-cup chicken. Marcus says you're Claire's friend staying while she's in Europe? The cover story Marcus created, I realize. Yes, that's right. Thank you so much for the food. No trouble, she says, stepping inside. When I gesture her in. Been feeding that boy since he was in the army. Too skinny then, too skinny now. I smile at her maternal concern, struck again by how little I know about Marcus's life outside his professional role. You've known him a long time? 15 years at least, she confirms, moving comfortably to the kitchen to set down her dish. Since Claire bought this place. Good man. Quiet, but good. Yes, I agree softly. He is. She eyes me shrewdly, as if sensing there's more to the story than a friend staying at Claire's house. You in some kind of trouble, dear? The question catches me off guard. Why would you think that? Mrs. Chen waves a hand dismissively. Marcus doesn't bring just anyone here. And he had that look. What look? The one from before. When he was protecting people for real, not just rich men who think they're important. She pats my arm. Don't worry. I don't need details. Just know my door is open if you need anything. Her simple acceptance brings unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you. Mrs. Chen stays for tea, chatting about the neighborhood, her grandchildren in California, the changing seasons. It's ordinary conversation, the kind I rarely had in the Bennett world where every interaction seemed to carry hidden agendas or power plays. When she leaves, promising to bring more food tomorrow, the house feels less empty somehow. Evening arrives with a spectacular sunset that paints the sky in shades of pink and gold. I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, watching as stars appear, one by one in the darkening sky. In Manhattan, light pollution obscures all but the brightest stars. Here, the Milky Way spreads across the heavens in a glittering swath. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus. All okay? Yes, I reply. Met Mrs. Chen. She brought food and stories about you. There's a pause before his response. Should I be worried? The question makes me smile. Only if you're hiding a scandalous past. She thinks very highly of you. Good people, the Chens. Is all he says. Then, Diane is working on the emergency hearing. Should have a date tomorrow. My stomach tightens at the reminder of reality. Thank you for checking. Get some rest, he replies. See you tomorrow? I sit with the phone in my hand long after the screen darkens, feeling strangely comforted by the brief exchange. Then I head inside, locking up for the night, and prepare for bed in the unfamiliar house. Sleep comes easier than I expected, the country quiet a soothing change from city noise. I dream of open doors and pathways through woods, waking with the dawn feeling more rested than I have in months. I'm sitting on the porch with coffee when Marcus's car appears on the gravel drive, earlier than I expected. Something in his expression as he gets out sets alarm bells ringing. What's wrong? I ask as he climbs the steps. Richard's investigator has been asking questions at Cassie's building, he says without preamble. They know you were staying there? Fear tightens my chest. Does he know I'm here? Marcus shakes his head. No indication of that yet. But Diane thinks we should move up the hearing. She's pushing for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? The word comes out as a whisper. She's concerned about Richard's next moves. Cutting off your finances was just the first step. She thinks he might try something more drastic. The fear in my chest expands. Like what? Marcus hesitates, clearly weighing how much to tell me. There's a possibility he might try to claim you're unstable. That you left during some kind of breakdown. That's ridiculous, I protest, but even as I say it, I can imagine exactly how Richard would spin it, his fragile wife, overwhelmed by social obligations, experiencing a nervous episode. His mother would back him completely, painting me as erratic, emotional, unable to handle the pressures of Bennett family life. It wouldn't stand up to scrutiny, Marcus assures me. But it could complicate things, drag out the process. I wrap my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm morning. What do we do? Diane needs you back in the city today. She wants to prep you for the hearing, get everything lined up. He pauses. We should leave within the hour if possible. Just like that, my brief sanctuary is coming to an end. I'll pack my things, I say, rising on legs that feel suddenly unsteady. Upstairs, I gather the few items I brought, the clothes Cassie helped me buy, the toiletries, my phone charger. It takes less than 5 minutes to pack everything. I now own into a single small bag. 3 years of marriage, and my life has been reduced to this. The thought should be depressing, but instead I find it strangely liberating. I've been stripped down to essentials, forced to determine what truly matters. And what matters, I realize with sudden clarity, isn't the designer wardrobe or the luxury apartment or the Bennett family name. What matters is my dignity, my autonomy, my right to be treated with basic respect. When I come back downstairs, Marcus is on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. He ends the call when he sees me. That was Diane, he explains. She's set up a safe house in the city, an apartment owned by her firm for clients in situations like yours. Richard won't know about it. Another hideout, I say, attempting a smile that doesn't quite stick. Marcus studies me, concern evident in his eyes. Just until the hearing. After that, you'll have funds of your own, legal protection. You can make your own choices. My own choices. The phrase echoes in my mind as we load my bag into Marcus's car and begin the drive back to the city. For 3 years, my choices have been subtly but persistently constrained: where to live, what to wear, who to see, how to behave. The prospect of true freedom is both exhilarating and terrifying. What if he contests it? I ask as Manhattan's skyline appears on the horizon. The emergency support. He can try, Marcus says. But the facts are on your side. He cut you off completely, left you without resources. No judge will look favorably on that. I nod, trying to take comfort in his certainty. And after the hearing? What then? Marcus glances at me. That depends on what you want, Emma. What I want. Such a simple question that I've forgotten how to answer. What do I want? Not just regarding the marriage, but for my life, my future? I don't know yet, I admit. I need time to figure that out. Then that's what will get you, he says simply. Time. We navigate through midday traffic to an unremarkable building in Chelsea, parking in an underground garage with a security gate. Marcus leads me to a service elevator that opens directly into a hallway with only 2 doors. The firm's apartment is on the right, he explains, using a key card to unlock it. Inside, the space is impersonal but comfortable, clearly designed for temporary occupancy but with attention to basic needs. A living area with a sofa and television, a small kitchenette, a bedroom visible through an open door. Diane will be here at 4 to prep you, Marcus says, setting my bag down. The hearing is at 9 tomorrow morning. The reality of what's happening hits me in a fresh wave. Tomorrow I'll stand before a judge and formally request financial support from the husband I've fled. Tomorrow I'll take the first official step toward whatever comes next. Will you be there? I ask, surprised by how much I want him to say yes. If you want me to be, he replies carefully. I do, I say without hesitation. Please. He nods, something softening in his expression. Then I'll be there. A knock at the door makes both of us tense, but Marcus relaxes when he checks the peephole. It's Cassie, he says, opening the door. She bursts in like a small hurricane, immediately, enveloping me in a fierce hug. God, I've been so worried. Are you okay? Did country living agree with you? I can't help but laugh at her familiar intensity. I'm fine. It was actually peaceful. Over her shoulder, I see Marcus step back, giving us space for our reunion. I'll let you two catch up, he says. I need to meet with Diane anyway. Go over security for tomorrow. Cassie releases me, turning to eye him with less suspicion than before. Thanks for taking care of her, she says, surprising both of us with her sincerity. Marcus inclines his head slightly. Emma takes care of herself. I just provided transportation. The simple statement, delivered without any hint of condescension or false modesty, catches me off guard. In all our interactions, Marcus has never once treated me as helpless or fragile, never suggested I needed rescuing. He's offered help, yes, but always with the underlying assumption that I am capable, that my decisions matter, that my agency is paramount. It's such a stark contrast to Richard's approach, the constant implication that I couldn't possibly manage without him, that his guidance was necessary for my survival, that his control was for my own good. I'll be back later to check in, Marcus says, moving toward the door. Call if you need anything before then. After he leaves, Cassie turns to me with raised eyebrows. So, the bodyguard. It's not like that, I say automatically. She replies, clearly unconvinced. Well, whatever it's not like, he seems decent. And he definitely has your back. I can't argue with that assessment. He's been unexpected. Cassie flops onto the sofa, patting the spot beside her. Tell me everything. The country house, the preparations, how you're feeling about tomorrow. I sit beside her, grateful for her familiar presence, her unquestioning support. We talk for hours, my anxiety about the hearing gradually easing as Cassie reminds me of who I was before Richard, strong, independent, with dreams and opinions of my own. You know, she says thoughtfully, I think that's what Richard saw in you initially. Your spark. Your certainty about who you were. He just wanted to control it, own it, rather than nurture it. The observation rings true. Richard had pursued me with singular focus when we met, charmed by what he called my refreshing directness. It was only after the wedding that he began to systematically dismantle that quality, replacing my directness with deference, my independence with compliance. I lost myself, I say quietly. So gradually I barely noticed it happening. Cassie squeezes my hand. But you found yourself again. That's what matters. When Diane arrives at 4, precisely as scheduled, she brings a professional intensity. That shifts the atmosphere from personal to practical. She runs through what to expect at the hearing, the questions the judge might ask, the evidence we'll present of Richard's financial control, the likely counter-arguments his lawyers will make. Richard hired Grafton, she says, naming one of the city's most prestigious divorce attorneys. He's not messing around. Is that bad for us? I ask, anxiety flaring again. It means he's taking this seriously, Diane replies. Which is actually good. It shows he understands you're not simply going to come crawling back. She continues with her preparations, having me practice answers to potential questions, reviewing bank statements and credit card records that her investigator has already obtained. By the time she leaves, my head is spinning with legal terminology and procedural details. Get some rest, she advises as she packs up her briefcase. Tomorrow will be intense, but we're well prepared. And Emma, you should be proud of yourself. What you're doing takes real courage. After she leaves, I stand at the window looking out at the city lights, feeling strangely disconnected from the Emma who moved through that glittering world as Mrs. Richard Bennett. 3 days ago, I was serving brunch to my husband's family, accepting their criticism and control as the price of belonging. Now I'm preparing to face Richard across a courtroom, to formally challenge his authority over my life. A text from Marcus interrupts my thoughts. Everything set with Diane? Yes, I reply. Just processing it all. Want company? I can bring dinner. The offer is simple, practical, with no pressure or expectation. Just like everything Marcus does. Please, I text back. That would be nice. As I set my phone down, I realize I'm smiling, a small, private smile that has nothing to do with Richard or the Bennetts or tomorrow's hearing. It's the smile of a woman who is beginning to rediscover herself, piece by fragile piece. A woman who is learning, step by uncertain step, what it means to be truly free. Tomorrow will bring challenges I can barely imagine. Richard will be angry. His family outraged, their legal team formidable. But for the first time in years, I'm not facing the future as Mrs. Richard Bennett, a role I've played with increasing desperation. I'm facing it as Emma, just Emma, a woman finding her own voice, her own strength, her own way forward. And somehow, that makes all the difference. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.